Justice League is finally out. Everything that Warner Brothers has been building to for the last 4 years has finally been completed, and it was alright. It was okay. Pretty okay. This movie review is gonna have a couple spoilers. I don't think it's really spoiling anything that nobody knew about already. Like, for instance, I feel like everyone already knew about this, so, but if you really want to avoid any of the tiniest little spoilers for this movie and you just want to see the movie, I would just give it a 5 out of 10 if you really want to know my opinion on it. It's a straight up 5 out of 10. It's amazing that finally the story works in this movie. It's really simple. It's one MacGuffin that everybody's kind of chasing after, and all the characters are balanced, and there's a horrible villain, but it's a movie that I don't think even really needs a good villain. It's just a movie to see all these characters join together, and the story and the reasoning for them to get together is really good. It's just it's basically a world domination plot. Sometimes movies do that all the time, but for this movie, what you're really looking for are the character interactions. You're not really worried about the story. The story doesn't need to take precedent. We're not making some kind of like Shawshank Redemption or like Forrest Gump where the whole story is what drives the movie. No, what this movie needs is good characters. That's the only reason to do one of these team-up movies. It's very similar to The Avengers. The Avengers was a very simple plot. It was one guy trying to take over a planet. The reason we see the movie is for some good action and for some good character interaction. It's been a really weird path for DC. None of the movies I would call the worst movies ever made. All of them to me are okay, but especially with Suicide Squad, I wouldn't really want to rewatch that again. Each movie has its good assets and it also has its bad assets, and this movie's good asset was the fact that it had good character interaction. In fact, I want to stop just talking about story now. Let's move on to characters. The characters are actually really good. You have Batman and Wonder Woman, which I would have never imagined that they'd be a good pair to interact with one another, especially after Batman v Superman, where it didn't really seem like there was going to be a huge camaraderie between those two. It seemed like it was being forced. In this movie, I was worried that that was going to happen again, but then you see the movie and it's done really well. It's to the point where I kind of wish the whole movie was just Batman and Wonder Woman going off and fighting some demon or something, because their interaction is so good. You have Jason Momoa as Aquaman. He was a character I was expecting to hate just based on the trailers alone, but he was actually a real entertaining part of the movie. In fact, he's probably the best of the new characters that were introduced. He has a whole backstory as well, and you kind of see a little bit of his roots and him being in the ocean and seeing where he comes from. It doesn't seem like you need another movie to tell that part of the story. You kind of get what's going on just by watching the movie. If they decide to do a spin-off movie with just him, which I think they have planned for next year, I'll be definitely wanting to go because he was interesting. Ezra Miller plays the Flash, which I don't get why they had a different Flash from the TV show. I don't understand any of that, but that's DC making their decisions. But he was a really good Flash. Ezra Miller has a really good, fun performance. Not everything he says is funny. Sometimes it seems almost like they're giving him too many lines and having him be a little too goofy and a little too sarcastic, or not even really sarcasm, but just, I don't know, just he has that teen boy kind of humor to him, which I don't know how to describe it, but it's just not done too well. But at other points, it's done fine enough. He was a good addition. He just wasn't the highlight of this movie. Then you have Cyborg, which probably technically the least interesting of all the characters, but all the other characters are so good that every time Cyborg shows up, I'm able to focus enough on the movie of what's going on. So yeah, he was a good addition as well. I thought everybody was just great additions, especially for characters that I really don't know much about. And then when they're in fighting scenes, they're all contributing really well. In fact, if we really want to start comparing right now to the original Avengers film from 2012, this movie actually does something a little better, and that's make everybody have something, contribute in some form to the team. The original Avengers, sure, they have everybody contributing, but in a lot of ways, none of their powers seem useful for everything, and some of the characters just seem like they could be doing way more than they are. That was, not that the Avengers is bad, it's a good movie and everything, obviously, but I'm just saying that this movie actually did that better than the Avengers by showing what everybody can do. The effects and the look of the film. This is gonna be the most difficult part to talk about because it seems like everybody always complained that the DC films were too dark. And especially in comparison to the Marvel films, they had no humor, there was no lighthearted moments, and everything was like the coloring of the films was too gray and everything. I will agree that maybe the colors weren't popping out as much as they should have been, especially in the original Man of Steel, when his costume's hardly blue even. But it's a very minor, you know, like almost personal opinion about the film that I don't think really affects it. In my opinion, I always really liked the look that Warner Brothers has been going for with these movies. The real problem with the Warner Brothers movies have always been the structure. Every one of these films have had a structure problem, and it wasn't because the movies were long, it's mostly just because there was too much story going on, or there wasn't enough story going on in the case of Man of Steel. It just was a very strange balancing act that can almost go back to the screenplay, in that none of these films ever really had a basic 3-act structure to them. That's fine if you're doing like an art film, or if you're doing something different and your vision for the film is so unique that it just comes out as a success, but you're taking a huge gamble when you do that. These movies have just had real bad structure from the beginning. I don't know what the real cause for it is, but then Wonder Woman came out, which had a really good 3-act structure, and the movie was nearly 2.5 hours long. So it's not the length of the movies that's the problem, it was just the structure. They decided to make it a lot more colorful, they decided to make a lot of the characters more jokey and stuff, and it's fine in some areas, but I really do wish they wouldn't have completely gone away from the darker tone of the films. I don't mind jokes, but I also don't really think you needed to make the film as lighthearted as you did. Wonder Woman already did that. They fixed the structure of that movie, they added some humor to it, but they didn't change the overall look and tone of the films. And then this film kinda did. It's kind of impossible to watch this movie and think, oh yeah, this is a sequel to Batman v Superman. There's a lot of times where the sets and the character designs and everything about it just seems cheaper. You don't really see the impact of anything going on. You still need to see how the rest of the world is reacting to Superman being gone. There's not a lot of extras in this movie. It's mostly the main cast, and that's about it. So the movie felt a lot smaller than it really should be, especially when the big moment happens where Superman returns. It was, the effects were pretty bad in this movie. Not too bad, but compared to all the other movies, this was by far the worst looking one. And it's not really that they were bad, it was just the choices and how they did the effects. It was the fact that the ending scene was all shot in this weird red looking, I don't even really know, like this weird red dome that they were in, and all the monsters looked very similar to one another, and I just didn't understand these choices. It looked just really generic. There's some scenes that just look really good though. The opening scene of the movie is where Batman's fighting one of the bad guys on like a rooftop. It looks straight out of the Tim Burton movies. It looks like it's a direct sequel to Batman Returns. The rest of the movie is just a weird mishmash of stuff going on, so. Danny Elfman returned to do the music. I was really excited for that because he said he was going to bring back the original Batman theme from the 1989 film. I don't really think there was a Batman theme made for Batman v Superman, and he wasn't going to take the Christopher Nolan Batman theme. So he was actually pretty harsh about that. He said there's only been one Batman theme, which isn't even true. And then they were also bringing back the Superman theme, and they were bringing back the Wonder Woman theme, so it was a good mishmash of all that, and I thought the music was real fun. At times, it's almost like it doesn't fit, but that's just going back to the fact that the whole tone of the film is different from the other ones. Well, now the music's completely different too. I really liked the fact that they put the Superman theme in, because it comes in at a perfect scene. The Batman theme, on the other hand, it was all drowned out by sound effects and everything. So I don't know if that was because Danny Elfman put that theme in there and then they were like, yeah, but we don't want to put that theme in the movie, but so let's kind of cover it up, let's sort of hide it. And I don't know, there's this big fear for having any kind of themes in movies anymore, and it makes me sad because, you know, those are some of the greatest themes of all time, and there hasn't really been a good theme for any movie since, I don't know, Harry Potter was really kind of the last one. I can't think of another movie that actually has a theme. So overall, yeah, the movie was a fine enough movie. It was a popcorn flick. It was kind of hard to watch towards the end of the movie, and the beginning scene, while they kind of got the structure fixed, there was a lot of random, pointless, well, not even really pointless, but there's just a lot of scenes going on in succession trying to a lot of exposition, basically. When the team starts joining together, the movie's really good. There's some really good interactions between Batman and Wonder Woman. The highlight for me in the movie was when Superman returns. I never thought I'd say that, but Superman was kind of the best part of this movie. When he comes back, he's like bad Superman at first. He's the evil Superman, and it's done really well. Then when he comes back for the final fight, he's like the original 70s Superman. You know, he's like, the very end of the movie is Superman running at the screen, ripping off his shirt, and there's the Superman logo, and you haven't seen that since the original Superman movies from years ago. So it's really fun to see all that. The rest of the movie, though, is, I don't know if I'd see it again. And at times it gets a little, the jokes are just bad. Who would I recommend this to? I don't know. I don't know what DC fans who have loved the last couple movies will think of this, because it is kind of a different movie altogether. They obviously were trying to copy the Marvel formula. They changed the tone, which a lot of people liked about the other movies. In fact, I liked that about the movies. It's a tone that was carried over into Wonder Woman, so to completely change it up in this movie, to make it so jokey and so colorful, but then have a lot of bad effects as well, it's gonna be interesting to see what the DCEU fans think of it. All the best scenes of Man of Steel and Batman v Superman were better than any scene that's in Justice League. So those movies were worse, and they had way dumber scenes and way bigger plot points that just made me mad and just think, how could a movie even do that? Like, this movie is so stupid. But Justice League, while it doesn't have any real bad dumb scenes that made me, you know, ache in my brain hours later, it didn't really have any great scenes that I thought back to later and was like, yeah, you know what, that scene was really good. I liked what they were doing in Wonder Woman, and I really hope that Justice League was more of the fact that they already had the movie planned, they were already filming it, so let's just finish it, and now let's start focusing on the characters individually. And it seems like they're doing that now. It doesn't seem like they're trying to do another Avengers-like movie again. It seems like they're just trying to focus on each individual character, which is good. 5 out of 10, I guess. Sorry if it's a bit of a long review, but I had to get my thoughts out there.